How do you envision things going on November 6th?
We'll hear the words, and the new undisputed super middleweight is 8 rounds, still undefeated.
Tengo la experiencia, tengo la fortaleza.
I don't give a shit about none of that.
Nunca he peleado con alguien como yo y la experiencia es muy importante. And I take something personal, even better.
He's used to people coming in and just bowing down to him and being happy for their check. And he's gonna find out at the same time everybody else found out. Too late.
I just want to be undisputed.
There is no turning back.
El primero en este peso.
No plan B.
El primero en Latinoamérica.
Submit my name in the history books.
The masses have flocked in unison to the fight capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada, for the promise of history, crowning the first four-belt undisputed super middleweight champion.
I've dedicated my life to this sport, sacrificed a lot for this sport. Not just me, but my whole team. We're here to win those belts.
At the end of the day, I'm gonna use my skills, my experience, and Saturday night, we're gonna make history.
I can show you better than I can tell you. Tune in November 6th.
Saturday night, 7 rounds.
Ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon to you and welcome to the MGM Grand Garden Arena here in Las Vegas. Well, Fight Week is here. You can see it, you can taste it, you can feel the excitement, and you can smell the excitement as well. And now Premier Boxing Champions presents the final press conference for one of the most highly anticipated fights of the year, Canelo versus Plant, for the undisputed super middleweight championship of the world, live on Showtime pay-per-view. This event is brought to you by Canelo Promotions and TGB Promotions, as sponsored by Hennessy and Value. And now, without further ado, let's bring out our fighters for this history-making night of boxing, champion versus champion, for the very first undisputed super middleweight championship of the world. First, the IBF title holder now making his way to the stage, accompanied by his longtime trainer, Justin Gamber. He's a Asheville City native, now fighting out of Las Vegas. He has dedicated his life to boxing, and he is eyeing this golden opportunity to become the very first super middleweight undisputed world champion. And he is ready. Making the fourth defense of his title, record 21 wins, no losses. He is the undefeated reigning IBF super middleweight champion of the world, Sweet Hands Caleb Plant. And now his opponent, the unified world champion and a star of boxing, accompanied by his longtime trainer and manager, Eddie Reynoso, the fighting pride of Guadalajara, Jalisco, Mexico. Boxing's #1 star and pound-for-pound great, the 4-division world champion, and the current WBC, WBA, and WBO super middleweight champion of the world, Saul Canelo Alvarez. We're going to hear from our fighters shortly. At this time, we'd like to acknowledge the outstanding cooperation and effort by the co-promoters in making this event possible, Canelo Promotions, along with President Tom Brown and the team of TGB Promotions. Well, it has been a very busy and exciting year for Showtime Championship Boxing. And there's much more to come, exciting schedule the next 2 months as we end 2021. But nothing is bigger than this fight, this mega fight, Canelo versus Plant. At the helm and center of success for Showtime Boxing, my pleasure to introduce to you at this time the president of Showtime Sports, Steven Espinosa.
Thank you very much, Jimmy. As Jimmy mentioned, for Showtime Sports, 2021 has been one of our most prolific years on record. By the end of this year, we will have produced and delivered a total of 42 live boxing and mixed martial arts events from January to December, making it the second biggest year of televising combat sports in our history. Week after week, month after month, year after year, Showtime has been and continues to be the standard bearer for the sport of boxing. There's no other network that presents the sport with the quality, the experience, the clarity, the objectivity, and the expertise that we do. And that's why this fight, Canelo Álvarez versus Caleb Plant for the undisputed super middleweight title, belongs here on Showtime pay-per-view, the highest quality presentation with the largest reach. Right now, we're in the midst of a remarkable run of 7 fights in 8 weeks, 3 days away from the biggest fight of the year, obviously. Following weekend, we have another promising young star, David Benavidez, who is certainly going to be looking to make his mark in 168, followed by a unification fight on the 27th with Stephen Fulton and Brandon Figueroa, and Tank Davis, a pay-per-view, as well as Nonito Dodeno returning, followed up by Jake Paul versus Tommy Fury. But here today with our partners, Canelo Promotions, PBC, TGB Promotions, we're thrilled to be back here at the historic Grand Garden Arena at MGM. This is the home of historic fights. Roberto Duran, George Foreman, Mike Tyson, Roy Jones, they've all fought here. This is a historic arena and the appropriate destination for a fight like this. Canelo has fought here 7 times, Plant twice. Previously on Showtime, Canelo has fought 5 times on Showtime, and we're thrilled to welcome him back. This will be Plant's second appearance on Showtime, and we're thrilled to have him back as well. Canelo, you know him by now. He is the consensus #1 fighter in the sport. Turned pro at age 15, never been down as a pro. There's a lot of discussion about where he ranks among the all-time greats of Mexican boxers. But that's the wrong question. The right question is where he ranks among the all-time greats from anywhere in the world. He's had 20 bouts versus world titleists. 11 of his last 12 fights have been against world champions. He's been a world champion in 4 different divisions, and he is universally considered boxing's pound-for-pound leader, and is looking to be the first Mexican in the 4-belt era to be an undisputed champ, and the first fighter from anywhere in history to be the undisputed champ at 168. Should Canelo be successful in unifying all the titles, he will have done so in just 11 months after winning his first title. If Plant wins and becomes undisputed, he will have done so in 2+ years, and that speaks a lot for the quality of fights these 2 young men have been taking. You know Caleb Plant. He is also a champion in IBF, world champion, undefeated. People ask, what does Caleb Plant bring to this fight? The better question is, what doesn't he bring to this fight? He's big, strong, athletic, an excellent boxer, good movement, strong defense, an excellent jab, and a hunger and a determination that has driven him to this point. So when you have someone as well established as Canelo is, pound for pound #1, the biggest star in the sport, the temptation is to assume that Canelo is going to be as dominant as we've seen him be. That's what we're used to seeing. But as Lee Corso says, not so fast, my friend. This is, without a doubt, Canelo's toughest fight, his biggest challenge since the Golovkin fights, and rightly so. This is a fight with a lot of personal animosity. This is not just the undisputed world title at stake. This is for pride. This is for legacy. This is for history. Don't miss it. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Reminding you this is live on Showtime pay-per-view. You can order the event on showtime.com/ppv or virtually all the traditional cable and satellite providers. As Stephen had mentioned, it takes place here at the Grand Garden, MGM Grand Garden Arena, a historical venue. And my understanding that if you want to come see the fight live, there still are some tickets, limited tickets available. You can go to axs.com. And at this time, we want to hear from our trainer, the men who know the fighters the best. They've prepared expert game plans for their quality and valued opponents. First, we'll look at Caleb Plant's trainer, hear from him. His longtime trainer, he trains along with his father, Richie Plant. Please welcome to the microphone, Justin Gamber. Justin?
Hello. I want to thank everybody for coming. I want to thank all the members of our team that are with us day in and day out, that put in work every day. In my opinion, we have the best team in boxing, and because we have so many great team members, every one of them is a great team member. So I want to thank our team. I want to thank Snack. And I want to thank TGB and just, Al Heyman and Louis DeCubas for making this fight happen. It's funny to say, but saying that we had the best training camp, it almost feels kind of cliche because, I don't know, it seems like everyone says it, and I'm about to say it again. We've had the best training camp, and every training camp that we've ever had have been great for different reasons, and this training camp has had its challenges for different reasons, but it's been the best training camp for me and for this team. So just know that no stone has been left unturned. All the work has been put in. We've gone above and beyond to prepare for this fight, and you're not going to see a better version of Caleb Plant in the ring on Saturday night. The work's not done yet. We still have 12 rounds of boxing to put in, and at the end of those 12 rounds, I have no doubt whose hand will be raised. It's going to be Caleb Plant, the first undisputed super champion in boxing history. Thank you, everyone, for coming. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Justin. And now we'll hear from Canelo's camp. My pleasure to introduce to you at this time Canelo's loyal, longtime trainer and manager, Eddie Reynoso.
Buenas tardes. Antes que nada, pues agradecer a toda la gente que está aquí, que está apoyando esta gran pelea.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you all for coming to support this fight.
No hemos hecho un gran campamento, hemos hecho una gran carrera para este sábado poner la cereza en el pastel, como decimos.
This hasn't only been a great training camp. We have witnessed a great career, and this fight is, like you would say, the cherry on top for everything.
Hemos tenido grandes peleas con grandes peleadores de todos los estilos, zurdos, derechos, campeones y no campeones.
We have fought so many different fights against former champions and non-champions alike.
Creo que hay muy poco que decir de la carrera de Saúl, pero el sábado vamos a poner al primer mexicano, al primer latino como primer campeón indiscutible.
There is not much left to say about Canelo's career, but in the end, this Saturday, we're going to witness the first Mexican undisputed world champion.
Y a la vez respetamos mucho el trabajo del equipo de Plan, pero nosotros somos mejores y el sábado se va a demostrar.
We respect and admire Plant's work ethic, his team as well, but in the end, we are better and we're going to show that on Saturday night.
Y poner al boxeo de México donde siempre debe de estar, en lo más alto. Y pues muchas gracias a todos los que están aquí presentes.
The goal is to be at the top, and thank you again, once again, for everybody here supporting this fight. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eddie. We also want to recognize his father here, legendary longtime trainer. We say hello to Chepo Reynoso. Before we hear from the fighters, we do want to acknowledge our undercard for this big event, featuring 3 10-round bouts. Showdowns featuring in separate bouts two-time world champion Anthony the Dog Durrell and the Showtime debuts of former world champion Ray Vargas, who is still undefeated, and the knockout artist Elvis Rodriguez in separate bouts in our undercard on Saturday night. And now, ladies and gentlemen, let's hear from our fighters at this time. My pleasure first to introduce to you the IBF title holder. He'll be making the fourth defense of his title. He is the talented and determined and undefeated IBF super middleweight champion of the world, Sweet Hands, Caleb Plant.
What's going on? Appreciate all the media showing up today. I want to thank Al Heyman, my manager Luis de Cubas, Showtime, Stephen Espinosa, and everybody who plans on tuning in Saturday night. Not much time left and really not much left to say, so I'm going to keep it short and sweet. Leading up to this fight, Canelo said that Mexicans don't fuck around. Well, that's good to know because where I'm from, we don't fuck around either. So Saturday night, make sure you tune in. You'll be seeing the first undisputed super middleweight of all time. This is history. And you're looking at him. His name is Caleb Plant. Thank you.
Thank you, Caleb. Also want to remind you the fighters and trainers will be available for one-on-one interviews following our Q&A from Brian Campbell coming up. And now, ladies and gentlemen, introducing the unified world champion, looking to become the first Mexican boxer in the history of the sport to capture an undisputed title. Ladies and gentlemen, he is going to and aiming to cement his place as one of boxing's all-time greats. Please welcome the undisputed super middleweight champion of the world, Saul Canelo Álvarez.
Solamente quiero agradecer a todos por estar aquí, como siempre, apoyando.
I just want to thank everybody here for, like always, to be here supporting me.
Gracias a todos los que hicieron posible esta pelea.
Thank you, everybody, for making this fight possible.
Y como ya lo dijo Eddie, hace muchos años empezamos este camino para completar esto y estamos muy contentos de estar a muy pocos días de hacerlo.
And like Eddie said, we have come a long way to make this happen, and we are just days away from making history.
Y nada, agradecerles, no hay mucho que decir. Nos vemos el sábado 6 de noviembre. Como saben, vamos a hacer historia juntos, gracias a todos, y quisiera aprovechar para darle a Eddie el reconocimiento de hace ya un año más o menos, más de un año, por la pandemia no se lo dieron, del entrenador del año.
We would like to recognize Eddie Reynoso as Trainer of the Year. We didn't have the chance to do it with the pandemic, so I wanted to take the time to do it.
Muy merecido y creo que este año va a volver a hacerlo. Back to back.
This is very well deserved, and I believe he's going to repeat this year.
Gracias. Gracias.
Thank you very much.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, we move on to our Q&A session. And to lead us at this time, my pleasure to introduce to you boxing and MMA journalist and co-host of Showtime's Morning Combat. Please welcome Brian Campbell. Brian.
Thank you so much, Jimmy. Thanks to all the media for being here today. It's Fight Week, Las Vegas, 3 days out from history. But as these fighters know, sometimes the fight really begins when the fight is signed. And sometimes the promotional story, the journey can teach us things. September 22nd, the press conference that formally announced this fight, we almost found out who was the new undisputed champion on that day in Beverly Hills. So let me start here, Canelo. What did you learn about your opponent, Caleb Plant, from what took place that day in Beverly Hills when this fight was announced?
No, nothing. It's different when you're in the ring. Is way different. So I don't take nothing from there.
More or less the same question to you, Caleb. But really a focus on, were you surprised? I don't want to say how easily, maybe how quickly you were able to visibly get under Canelo's skin.
I mean, well, it wasn't my intention to get under his skin. And again, I think, you guys make a lot more of it than we do. I'm sure me and him both have been in worse scuffles than that. And I'm sure most people in this room have been in worse scuffles than that. So it's, again, like he said, when the bell rings, it's completely different. I don't take anything away from anything from the press conference.
Canelo, you made a great career fighting anyone, anytime, any style. When you look back over your run, what have you, or who have you faced that you think has prepared you to defeat Caleb Plant on Saturday?
No, I faced before many fighters, many good fighters with that style. So that made me feel confident in my boxing experience.
I want to slide that question over to Eddie Reynoso, your trainer. When it comes to developing a game plan to defeat Caleb Plant, what is your main focus for Saturday?
Cuando se trata de desarrollar una estrategia para vencer a Caleb Plant, ¿en qué te enfocas para este sábado?
No, pues en lo único que me enfoco es lo que sabe hacer mi boxeador. Hicimos un gran campamento, hicimos una gran preparación y creo que nos preocupamos por lo que hagamos, lo que vamos a hacer nosotros arriba del ring, hacerlo bien.
I don't focus on the opponent. I focus on what my fighter is going to be able to do. We had an amazing training camp, a great preparation, and we're going to be ready to roll on Saturday night.
Caleb Plant is champion versus champion. You've had an incredible journey to get here. When did the idea of facing Canelo Alvarez first become a reality to you in your career?
Well, I'm someone who, likes to focus on what's in front of me, and up until recently, he hasn't been in my weight division, so, I haven't really thought anything of him or anything of it. But, once he came into the division, I thought, this would make a huge mega fight, and here we are, so.
I've heard the phrase from you, whether it be in Showtime's All Access series or in many interviews, by any means necessary. What does that mean in particular to you winning this fight?
Just by any means necessary, getting the job done. And I feel like that not just myself and my team, we've done that this far to get to this point. And me, whether it's in boxing or whatever, by any means necessary, I've gotten here. I've had plenty of chances to bow out. I've had plenty of chances to step away and say, no, I'm done. I've had enough. And I haven't. So Saturday night, I can't wait for the bell to ring.
I want to direct a question to your own team. Justin Gainber, your trainer, father and trainer Richie Plant. When you look at the skills that Caleb brings to the table, what advantages does he have against Canelo?
Well, anytime you face the pound-for-pound best in boxing, you're going to have your work cut out for you. And we've had our work cut out for us before at the end of the day. And, we're prepared. We prepared our whole career for this night, fighting the best. And on Saturday night, you're going to see exactly what I'm talking about.
Canelo, I've heard you say, to the degree at times, this is just another fight, although you certainly accepted and went after this fight because of your pursuit of history. I think if Caleb has shown you anything in the build, it's the mental toughness. Any means necessary, like he says, he's coming for you. Does that change your preparation at all, knowing you have a very mentally tough opponent across from you?
No, I always train 100%. I always train, obviously, for the style of my opponent, but I always train 100%, and I like the idea.
Caleb, it's not easy to defeat Canelo Alvarez. Only one man has. It's not easy to win a close decision against him, considering his ability to land clean counter shots, heavy blows. Can you win a decision against Canelo? Is it a knockout? How does this fight look when you dream it, when you imagine Saturday night?
The way I see this fight turning out is, Jimmy Lennon saying, and the new undisputed and still undefeated. And, as far as the judges goes, he's had multiple close fights with Lara. Austin Trout gave him a good fight. Triple G has given him good fights. And but I believe that the right people are put in place to make sure that the right decision is made come Saturday night, and anything out other than that is out of my control. So all I can focus on is the game plan, me and my team, and the job that has to be done, and that's what we're focused on.
We'd like to continue this conversation with the media members present here at the MGM Grand Garden Arena. Steve Pratt, if you could tee up the first question.
Hey, Jordan. Shout out to women in boxing. Caleb, it has to do something for your mental psyche up here. You're sitting next to Canelo, all these accolades. His trainer is getting awarded Trainer of the Year at the same time. What do you do for mental health this week? And with all the media around it already saying that Canelo is going to win, and with mental health being such a big topic in the United States as it is right now. So what do you do to keep sane so that it doesn't get under your skin?
I mean, like a lot of us, you know, people are going to say what they're going to say, but they don't get the end saying. I get the end saying. So I can't focus on what other people have to say about me or what do they say I can accomplish. If I had listened to them to begin with, I wouldn't even be here. So again, I'm focused on the game plan. I'm focused on what I got to do, and what people say or odds makers, you know, that has nothing to do with me, and that's none of my business.
Aquí. Canelo, buenas tardes. ¿Qué significa para ti que ya no te están poniendo en la ecuación de los mejores mexicanos? Para muchos eso ya se logró. ¿Qué significa como mexicano que te pongan en la ecuación ya de estar en la historia como los mejores boxeadores, no solamente de México, sino de todo el mundo?
No, pues al final del día para eso trabajo, ¿no? Para eso estoy aquí, para hacer historia y para que me pongan como uno de los mejores peleadores en la historia del boxeo, no solo de México. Entonces me siento muy orgulloso y eso es lo que me motiva para seguir en este camino.
Gracias.
The question was, how does it feel to not only be considered one of the all-time Mexican greats, but one of the all-time greats worldwide? And Canelo said that that's the goal, to be an all-time great. And I'm so proud of trying to achieve that. And I'm never going to stop until I try my best to be one of the all-time greats.
La pregunta para Saúl Canelo Álvarez, Osvaldo Príncipe, TNT Sports, Argentina. Saúl, tanto como Plan, hemos hablado ya muchísimo de la pelea. Pero al hombre le pregunto, lo veo con esa expresión. ¿Dónde está su cabeza a esta altura del miércoles, pensando en la balanza, viendo la cara de Plant? ¿Qué pasa por el alma del boxeador? Quizás los periodistas no podemos percibir, pero ¿en qué está pensando con esa expresión tan para adentro Saúl Canelo Álvarez a esta hora de la conferencia?
En ganar. Eso es lo único que pienso, en ganar. Visualizo la victoria, visualizo cómo voy a hacer las cosas arriba del cuadrilátero y siempre visualizo eso. Es lo único que pienso esta semana, ¿no? En ganar, en hacer las cosas como las tengo que hacer.
The question was, as far as what goes in, what's your thoughts as far as before the fight, before the weigh-in, sitting next to Plant? What goes in your head, not just as a fighter, but as a man? And Canelo said that only one thing goes through his mind, and that's winning. That's the only thing he's concerning about. Everything else is beyond him. The only thing he cares about is what's going to happen inside the ring on Saturday night.
Saúl, Jesús López, Deportes Vegas, 1460 AM. La pregunta es, fin de semana bastante interesante para nosotros los mexicanos. El Checo Pérez va a estar corriendo el Gran Premio de México. Tú vas a estar peleando por algo que no se ha hecho antes. ¿Llegaste a hablar con Checo Pérez acerca de esto, de lo que esto puede significar para la alegría del pueblo de México?
No, no he hablado con él para nada de esto, pero la verdad es que a mí me motiva y me enorgullece mucho que el mismo fin de semana estemos buscando algo grandísimo para México y la verdad que me siento muy orgulloso de eso y de representar a mi país.
Gracias, Saúl.
The question was that this weekend, Canelo is not going to be the only one trying to make history, but Sergio Checo Perez is also going to be participating in the Formula One Mexico Grand Prix. And so the question was, what does it mean to him for two Mexicans to be on the verge of making such great history? And Canelo said that he hasn't gotten to talk to Checo Perez yet, but that it motivates him absolutely, the fact that he can make history as well as Sergio can, and that hopefully it can happen that way, and it can be an unbelievable, unforgettable weekend for Mexican fans everywhere.
This will be our final media question.
Caleb Adriana Jimenez with Fino Boxing. Caleb, you've been underestimated throughout your career, and now you have this chance to become undisputed at 168. How much more motivational and sweeter would that be for Saturday night?
I mean, I've been the underdog. Maybe this is like my third time in my career, so, you know, but it's a place that I like to be. I like people rooting against me. I like being the underdog. I like that position. It gives me extra motivation, but, you know, fighting for the first undisputed super middleweight championship of the world, you don't need much more than that. So I'm focused, I'm locked in, I'm ready, I'm relaxed, I'm calm, and I'm focused.
Caleb, do you have any final words for your fans, for your opponent, on how Saturday night's fight will turn out?
Showtime pay-per-view, just make sure you tune in. Like I've said before, this isn't just the biggest fight of the year, but when you're tuning in this fight, you're tuning in to witness history as I get crowned the first undisputed super middleweight champion of the world.
Canelo, we'll give you the last word. What goes down this Saturday night?
No, agradecerles a todos, más que nada agradecerles, espero que estén viendo esta gran pelea, es una gran pelea, una pelea histórica. Ahora sí la catalogan como pelea del año por todo lo que significa y espero que los fans estén ahí apoyando y que disfruten de una gran noche.
I want to thank you all, and you know what? The best thing you can do is tune into this fight. It's going to be history, and you're not going to want to miss it. You're going to be witnessing something that you're going to remember for a long time, and I hope you can enjoy it.
All 4 super middleweight world titles at stake. The first undisputed champion in 168-pound history this Saturday night, Las Vegas, this arena, and only on Showtime pay-per-view. You can pre-order it right now on show.com. That's SHO/PPV. A few scant tickets remain at AXS.com. Thank you so much to the media members for showing up today and the fighters and their teams. And all those watching at home, we'll see you Saturday night.
Television, Deadline Television.
I think both guys are a little bit tired of all the cameras. They seem a little bit tired of all the media, which is understandable at this juncture. We're days away from the fight. They've done the all-access thing. They've done multiple scrums and radio tours. It has worn on them at this point, to the point where they have nothing else left to say except answer questions about legacy and what this means in the case of Canelo for his Mexican and larger Latino audiences and whatnot. It was straightforward, was it not?
It was cordial.
It was cordial.
It was professional.
It was not tense. I didn't feel, but they're not going to face off, right? So
no.
They took that part away, which may have escalated things.
Which you can argue that both ways, by the way, in terms of the entertainment factor or just the factor we've got both fighters here. We've got a fight Saturday night. Let's wait until then. But with that said, on that note, Luke, Caleb Plant said, look, it's been a little bit more of a media fixation, that fight we had, that skirmish. Well, there's a lot to fixate about, okay? When two fighters let their hands go so quickly at a press conference ahead of a big fight. Do you feel as we're getting closer and seeing the demeanor of both fighters that whether or not that's going to affect the fight at all is moving further in the rear view?
I just don't see how, if the animosity was consistently bubbling over, if it was a constant theme of their interaction, if it was just ever present where they had to get security and whatnot, at that point, I think questions about to what extent being in someone's head or whether or not they have enough professional bearing and composure is relevant. in this case, you have Canelo, who is about as experienced as a headlining professional in boxing possibly can be. Caleb Plant, not to that extent, but certainly not new to a relatively big spotlight that boxing has to offer. I just don't feel like there. I know what you mean because of the first initial press conference. You thought, wow, they're just going to get at each other's throats. But both of them have, it seems like, independently decided to dial it back so that when they win or when they lose, it will be based on skills. Skills win fights in the end.
True.
Not so much animosity, unless it's just out of control animosity, which it was not here.
Caleb Plant took home a souvenir from that press conference. You can see the marking underneath, of course, his right eye. That's all finished business for them. The unfinished business is what happens in the ring. So as we get closer, just 3 more sleeps, as the great John Anik would say, until Saturday night. Expectations for what type of fight we're going to see. Both fighters have been short, quick with their responses in that lane. We know Caleb Plant more the traditional boxer, but he's more aggressive than a traditional boxer. We know Canelo, by this point in his career, he can fight any style.
Right.
Are we going to be tactical early and aggressive late? How do we sort of try to handicap ahead of time? Maybe not who's going to win, just as much as who's going to take the lead, who's going to set the terms, and how this fight's going to be contested.
Yeah, if you're Team Canelo and your guy is as multifaceted as we proclaim him to be, and I don't think that's unfair. I do think he can fight going forward. He can fight backing up. He can fight opponents that want to get in close, and he can fight opponents that want to dance on the outside. And he's beaten, to your point on the stage, all of them except one, although, of course, there have been a few, let's say, close-ish fights along the way.
I may have scored 1 or 2 for Gennady Golovkin. Nobody needs to know that.
I understand it. Or Lara, or not so much Trout, but certainly Lara probably had a case as well. But here's the point I want to make. I was actually going back and I was texting you this the last couple of days. I've been going through and just rewatching as many old Caleb Plant fights as I could. I went back and looked at the Uzcategui fight. And in that fight, one of the times where you, again, Uzcategui is not Canelo, not by a million miles.
He's aggressive. He hits hard. Does he have the same craft? No.
No, he doesn't. There's not nearly the same kind of footwork or feints or reactive decision-making. However, what was one place where he had a lot of success, at least late? It was in close. And Caleb Plant actually accommodated him in something of a phone booth fight. Now, not totally, not all the time. And in fact, Caleb Plant had plenty of success where? With that left hook to the body or to the head at range. If I'm Eddie Reynoso, and I'm definitely not, but at least one thing to consider, Brian, I do think this is a reasonable argument. I think Canelo has to realize the best work that a guy like Caleb Plant does is when he is at distance, is when he is at range, when he can strike and get out of the way, change angles, move, turn Canelo, be on the outside and dance, right? You have to take that away. I'm looking to see Canelo pressure him into the ropes. I'm looking to see him get super close, forehead to forehead at times, especially later on when both fighters probably begin to tire a little bit. I think at early parts, it might be that Lara-Canelo dance. Again, Lara's a very different fighter, but that kind of phenomenon. But I think past the 6th or 7th round, that fight's going to be like the Uzcategui fight. It's going to get in close and tight, and I think Canelo probably will have the upper hand in those particular situations.
You and I have had the pleasure of interviewing Canelo, whether it be after that infamous press conference or after his media workout, a couple different spots. And he's been consistent on the 7th or 8th round knockout prediction. But he's also been consistent on the idea that the first half of this fight is going to be tough. He understands what Caleb Plant does bring to the table, which is hand speed, foot speed, a boxing IQ. But I think even more, and maybe some things, Luke, you may have picked up in the Uzcategui fight, explosive combinations. Caleb Plant's not going to be forgotten for a one-punch knockout artist, but he can flurry, and he can land the kind of punches that you don't see coming, which happened with 2 left hooks that floored Uzcategui. So I think for Caleb Plant, not only do you want to come out strong, you want to come out, try to get a lead on those scorecards. You want to flash that speed.
For sure.
You got to land something of consequence that, you know, the cliched term of gain that respect. No question about it. If Canelo has no reason not to march forward, you're gonna have a quick night, not a long night, because he's gonna be going to that body and he's gonna be chipping away at you.
I would say a couple things. One, I'm not saying that Caleb Plant lives or dies on the jab in this fight, but what I would say is if Caleb Plant can't early on meaningfully implement the jab, either for angle change, for body work. He, by the way, has a great jab to the body he starts out with all the time. You know, he gets really low when he does it. If he can't meaningfully impose that within the first 4 rounds or so, Again, I don't think he lives or dies on that, but what I would say is that's a very bad sign for him. The other part is about the defense. Now, the Uzcategui fight is interesting because he defends in a particular kind of way, that sort of forward pressure guy, where his hands come up, they kind of block his vision, and he just sort of shells a little bit there. That's not what Caleb Plant does. Caleb Plant Philly shells a little bit. He shoulder rolls a little bit. So my point being is, and neither does Canelo. Canelo doesn't do that kind of thing either. So if you're Caleb Plant and you want to strike a distance, that's fine, but you're not going to get a Canelo that's going to hold his hands up in front of his face to just sort of stay in the pocket with his presence. What does he do all the time? He pulls and counters, like Mayweather did on him. How about Billy Joe Saunders? Pull and then counter. And then he broke his face doing it. He slips punches. He doesn't just cover and then wait. He slips and then reacts. He turns defense into offense. If you're Caleb Plant, and I know his trainer is thinking about this, you have to figure out a way to not get caught in that after space. You have to know you have an opponent who will get out of the way of your extension and then make you pay for it. That's a big, big challenge for them in this fight.
One thing that has been a recurring theme about, okay, what does Caleb Plant bring to the table? The boxing ability, the speed, but the mental toughness, that does matter to a large degree because we've seen champions in his spot, an unbeaten Callum Smith, an unbeaten Billy Joe Saunders, as you mentioned, guys that we'd never seen lose before, come in here a bit mild-mannered. I know Billy Joe Saunders talked a little trash.
A little bit at the end.
But a little mild-mannered, and I'm not saying it's as easy as show up, meet the pound-for-pound king, hand over your belt, make a nice transaction, and go home. But in hindsight, when you look back, Canelo's so dominant, he can fight any style. That's how it ends up playing out. So that's why I've been on the soapbox from day one saying, would the September 22nd press conference have been my recommended ability behavior for Caleb Plant? Maybe not. You don't tug on Superman's cape was the old song there.
Right.
But it did establish something that he's here to win. He's here to go after it. Obviously, he's got to prove that on Saturday night. But that by any means necessary. I'm wondering, Luke, if there's a line on that. Because I don't mean a betting line. I mean a line that Caleb Plant can go up to, meaning I will risk it all to win this. But if you go over that line, Canelo will get you out of there a few different ways.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you get out in front of your skis, you're going to wake up looking at the lights here against Canelo Alvarez, a dominant puncher. I mean, we only had the one fight up there, but, putting Kovalev's lights out at 175, we saw what he's been doing at 168, breaking the face of Billy Joe Saunders and punching the arms of Callum Smith to the point where he couldn't use them. Yeah, I'm going to say he's the dominant puncher of the two here.
I like that he's mentally tough, but you may be mentally tough walking yourself into a knockout. You do have to ration that.
But see, that's why today's presser was actually pretty instructive. It may have been, let's be candid, a little on the boring side, at least relative to the very first one that we had. But dude, this is why Canelo is Canelo, and in defense of Caleb Plant, the same. What do I mean by that? These guys realize if they get a little bit too heated and too overheated before the fight, the train will come off the tracks. I like how they dialed it back because to me, BC, I wonder how you feel about this. When Caleb Plant dialed it back where he still has that smoldering intensity about himself, but he's not raging at his opponent, that to me is threading the needle where you're going to go out there with a chip on your shoulder. You want to stick it to people, the haters, Canelo fans, whoever, but at the same time, you want to keep your bearing and your discipline about it. That to me, what you saw there, maybe a little bit on the boring side, but I would call that threading the needle.
Yeah, and you want to talk about mentally tough, look at Canelo Alvarez's history, getting up on the largest platforms in this sport as a very young fighter, just 23 when he suffered his lone career defeat in this building, of course, in the 2013 super fight with Floyd Mayweather. And what have we seen him do from there? Evolve, just get smarter, stronger, more confident, more in control. His poise, Luke, is really, I mean, look, there's an endless amount of good things we can say about Canelo, but championship poise in big moments, to be able to make those adjustments, you've got to be comfortable in there. No one's more comfortable in the spotlight than Canelo Alvarez.
And also, I'm going to tie it into something which is not by itself the reason why he is the things you say, but I do think it actually plays a role, which is Canelo Alvarez, first of all, his defense has gotten just significantly better over the years. I don't know who could argue with that. But more to the point, you heard Jimmy Lennon Jr. say it. He's never been on the canvas. And he's taken big shots from dominant punchers of his era.
Think Gennady Golovkin, think Danny Jacobs,
right.
think,
24, 36 rounds with some guys who know how to land with authority. He's never been down. He's never tasted that. And he has stood in the fire against these guys. How does that not help you to not so much craft a strategy per se, but know when the chips are down, you've got what it takes, the mettle, the physical durability, and of course, the desire to get out there and create history.
That's why if you're Canelo, you can say comments like, he's just another opponent to me. Because in many ways, to be fair, he is. And then in some ways, Caleb Plant is. The history at stake is different.
It's not so much that it's true, it's the right attitude to take.
Yes.
And by the way, Caleb Plant saying the exact same thing, which is what you're supposed to do if you're a high-level prize fighter.
Canelo, as you can see, doing some after press conference rounds with the media there. The red beard looking very trim.
It's well coiffed.
I mean, you could learn a few things about how to maintain a beard from Canelo.
Can I have his bank account to work on my beard? If we can do that, then yes, I would.
Absolutely. Very much looking forward to this fight come Saturday night inside this building. We're going to find out if Caleb Plant does he know something? Because there's that level of confidence that's bordering on overconfidence where you're like, he must know something about himself, about Canelo, about this opportunity that we don't.
I will say one thing about the attitudes of the coaches, and you can see it in their fighters a little bit. The Canelo corner, so to speak, I'm not saying that they're not giving Caleb respect. I think that they are. When they're asked about it, they are, but they're also treating this as something of a foregone conclusion, something of that. Whereas on the other side, there's an intensity about the weight of the moment and also just how much they need this and want to prove this and are just dying to turn some kind of corner that Canelo's turned a couple of years ago. Not this exact same one, because obviously no one's unified 168, but you know what I mean? Those kinds of career milestones. So there was a certain kind of calm demeanor on one side, and it was calm on the other one, but let's say there's a little bit of undertow in that water. Got a little choppy there if you're really paying attention to some of the details.
I mean, what was the line that Caleb Plant had at the first press conference with the cut on his face? He said, all y'all out there looking to live what? Did he say ordinary lives? Believable lives. And he's looking to do something unbelievable. And obviously, when you look at the betting odds, it can be a little bit unbelievable when you're going up against the pound-for-pound #1, and that is Canelo Alvarez, who just so happens to be the biggest star in this sport. But yet he's fighting for the 4th time in 12 months.
Incredible.
Luke, I'm not sure anybody's unified a full set of 4 belts in a 12-month period. This is, I mean, outside of facing somebody who already owns them, this is a remarkable feat.
It truly is. And again, we should be clear about this. Go back and look at the weigh-in photos or the fights themselves when Canelo was standing across from Callum Smith or Kovalev, which of course a little bit while ago. It wasn't in the past year, but Billy Joe Saunders. Even Avni Yildirim, I think it was a little bit bigger than him. And he still went in there and did what he did. What you want from champions are the ones who dare to be great and also have a reasonable amount of competitive frequency. 3 times in a year is good for me. 4 is extra special.
31 years old, peak of his powers, Canelo Alvarez. Let's see what type of challenge Caleb Plant, the unbeaten IBF champion, is able to give this Saturday. And of course, we've got you covered wall-to-wall, wire-to-wire on Showtime Digital and beyond. You can catch our show, Morning Combat, 3 days a week, breaking down, recapping, reviewing all the biggest news and fights in MMA and boxing across the board. Will be part of the coverage this week. Undercard press conference, of course, tomorrow, Thursday, the weigh-in on Friday. These two fighters will face off for the final time. We'll have a little instant reaction Saturday night afterwards. You best believe that. Luke, you just landed in Las Vegas. You just took in the scene. Any final words on your expectations for the rest of the fight week, on how this feels and compares to what you've been in the past?
I've been to a couple of Canelo fights, some big ones. Soon as I got off the plane, I saw signage in the airport. People were asking me, are you here for the fight? It was just one of those situations where every step of my journey to get here, I was either reminded of the fight or quite literally asked about it. It just sort of goes to show the magnitude of Canelo's celebrity, and I think also the magnitude of this fight for boxing, for this division, and for Caleb Plant as well. If he does what many consider to be not the impossible, but certainly the unrealistic to some, even Caleb Plant would tell you that, we are going to be in for a treat and a historic day in boxing either way, and you can feel it.
Yeah, you can feel it in the city. It is buzzing. The fight is almost here. And of course, if you want to purchase that fight, show.com, that's SHO/PPV. Get out in front of that. You don't want to be clicking that button there a couple minutes before the fight starts. Get that settled and ready now. Make your plans. Get some snacks. Get some friends over, okay? If you don't have friends, just, I don't know, watch it alone.
We'll be your friends at youtube.com/morningcombat.
That is all for now here from the MGM Grand Garden Arena. I'm Brian Campbell. This is Luke Thomas of Morning Combat and Showtime Digital. Thank you so much for your time. We will see you this fight week as it rolls on ahead of Saturday. History on the line in the super middleweight division.
How do you envision things going on November 6th?